Hello student, last time we saw atomic spectra, its different types, its uses and classical planetary model of hydrogen atom. Today we are going to discuss Bohr's theory of hydrogen atom. We all are familiar with different theories related to the atomic model, starting from Thomson atomic model, Rutherford atomic model. All these theories are related to for the explanation of the internal structure of the atom. But for satisfactory explanation of the stability of the atom and observed spectrum of hydrogen atom, in 1913, Bohr proposed atomic model. And for proposing this atomic model, he made some assumptions called the postulates. And what are actually the different postulates? The first postulate, first postulates according to Bohr. According to Bohr, in first postulate, atom contains a very small central region called the nucleus. And surrounding the nucleus, electrons are revolving in circular orbit. This is the nature of the orbit of the electron revolving around the nucleus. In addition to this, necessary centripetal force for this electron revolving around the nucleus is provided by the electrostatic force of attraction between the nucleus and the electron. And this is actually the first postulates for atom at the center nucleus and surrounding the nucleus electrons revolving in circular orbit. When we consider this, suppose this is actually the electron and suppose this is nucleus. Nucleus suppose carry the charge Ze, charge on the nucleus, Z into E. What is Z? Z is atomic number, and that atomic number must be equal to 1 for hydrogen atom. It means that the charge on the electron Ze, that must be equal to E, that is the plus E charge on the nucleus. But charge on the electron is negative, and that is minus E. Suppose M mass of electron and suppose V is the velocity of the electron. Velocity of the electron, and suppose the radius of the orbit, suppose R, radius of orbit. Then according to the first postulates, centripetal force that must be equal to m into v square divided by r. And the next one, nucleus carry the positive charge, electron carry the negative charge. According to the Coulomb's law, electrostatic force of attraction that must be equal to 1 upon 4 pi epsilon 0 E square divided by R square, according to Coulomb's law. This is centripetal force. This is electrostatic force of attraction between the electron and nucleus. Therefore, and this centripetal force is provided by electrostatic force of attraction. Therefore, mv square upon r that must be equal to 1 upon 4 pi epsilon 0 E square divided by R square. Call this equation first, according to the first postulates. It means that in first postulates, atom at the center nucleus, and surrounding the nucleus electron is revolving in circular orbit. And for maintaining the circular motion, centripetal force is provided by electrostatic force of attraction. The next point, second postulate. No doubt electrons are revolving around the nucleus. But you remember that in second postulates, Bohr's assumed electrons are allowed only for those orbits that orbit satisfies the quantum condition. What is quantum condition? It means that electron revolves only in those orbits for which angular momentum must be equal to integral multiple of h upon twice pi. Integral multiple of h upon twice pi. This is quantum condition. Means this particular electron is not allowed to all the energy levels. It is allowed only certain orbits. And when it revolves within that orbit, at that time it cannot radiate energy. And for that orbit, the energy of the electron that remains constant, and such orbits we call it as a stationary orbit. Stationary orbit. Why we call it as a stationary orbit? It means that electrons are allowed only to revolve in stationary orbit. It means that when electron is revolving in such orbit, it cannot radiate energy. It cannot radiate energy. Its meaning is that its energy remains constant, and energy constant for such orbit we call it as a stationary orbit. And this is actually the quantum condition. If that electron satisfies this condition, angular momentum must be equal to integral multiple of h upon twice pi. In this equation, h is Planck's constant. H is Planck's constant. And what is n? N is integer. That value of n must be equal to 1, 2, 3, etc. And that n we call it as a principal quantum number. Principal quantum number. And this number indicates the number of the orbit and what is the energy of that orbit. That is indicated by this number, and that's why it is called a principal quantum number. Again, you remember that angular momentum L is equal to I omega. We know the relation. Angular momentum L is equal to I omega. And we know that what is I? Moment of inertia. Moment of inertia must be equal to mass multiplied by r square. And another relation, V is equal to r omega. Therefore, omega is equal to V upon r. Substitute these two values in this equation. Here is L is equal to NH upon tau pi. What is L? L is I omega, that must be equal to NH upon tau pi. What is I? Mr square. And what is omega? Omega is equal to V upon R. That must be equal to NH divided by tau pi. R gets cancelled. MVR is equal to NH upon tau pi. And this is very important equation according to second postulates. And this equation we call it as a quantum condition. Means second postulates for electron for which orbit it revolves, it is not allowed it to revolve in all the orbits. And this is the second condition for this. What about these third postulates? Suppose different orbits are there. Here is the nucleus at the center. Again another orbit. Again suppose this is orbit. And each and every orbit possesses energy. Suppose this is the first orbit for n is equal to 1. Its energy is E1. Second orbit n is equal to 2. Its energy is E2. And third one, here is for n is equal to 3. Energy level is E3. For each and every orbit, energy is fixed. In third postulates, in Bohr's, when suppose electron in higher orbits, and when it jumps from higher orbit to lower orbit, at that time it emits a radiation, and that radiation is in the form of the photon. And according to Planck's quantum theory, energy of the photon must be equal to h mu. It means that for this areas E3 minus E1, that must be equal to h mu. Whenever there is a transition of electron takes place from higher orbit to lower orbit, it emits a radiation, and the energy of that radiation h mu, that energy must be equal to difference of these two energy. But you remember that electron cannot emit the radiation or cannot emit the photon, but electron also absorb the photon. If suppose the electron at this point and photon is incident on it, and if the energy of the photon, if it is equal to difference of these two energy or difference of these two energy, at that time photon is absorbed and it jumps to the higher orbit. It means that in third postulates, there is a transition of the electron takes place from one orbit to another. But when transition takes place higher orbit to lower orbit, at that time it emits the photon, and the energy of that photon must be equal to difference of the two energies. But when the photon is absorbed, at that time electron jumps from lower orbit to higher orbit. This is actually the three postulates of the Bohr's theory of hydrogen atom. The next point, what about the radius of the Bohr's orbit? Expression for the radius of the Bohr orbit. Radius of Bohr orbit. Expression for the radius of the Bohr's orbit. According to the first postulates, centripetal force is equal to electrostatic force of attraction. According to first postulate, centripetal force mv square upon r, that must be equal to electrostatic force 1 upon 4 pi epsilon 0 E square upon r square. Here is r gets cancelled. mv square is equal to 1 upon 4 pi epsilon 0 E square upon r. Multiplying both sides by m, here is m square v square is equal to 1 upon 4 pi epsilon 0, here is m into E square upon r square. Call this equation first. According to the first postulates. According to second postulates, quantum condition mvr is equal to nh upon twice pi. M into v is equal to nh upon twice pi r. M is equal to this. Squaring both sides, m square v square is equal to n square h square divided by 4 pi square r square. Call this equation second. According to first postulates, m square v square is equal to this. According to second postulate, m square v square is equal to this. Equating equation first and second. 1 upon 4 pi epsilon 0 m e square upon r is equal to n square h square divided by 4 pi square r square. We want to find the expression for the radius of the Bohr orbit. Here is r, gets cancelled. M e square divided by 4 pi epsilon 0, that must be equal to n square h square divided by 4 pi square r. 4 gets cancelled, pi gets cancelled. What is remaining? M e square, here is multiple pi into r is equal to, here is remaining epsilon 0 n square h square. Then expression for r is equal to epsilon 0 n square h square divided by, here is pi m e square. This is an expression for the radius of the orbit. If the orbit, suppose the nth orbit, then radius of that nth orbit is equal to epsilon 0 n square h square pi m e square. In this equation, epsilon 0 h square pi m e square air is multiplied by n square. All these term in the bracket, all these are constant. All these are constant. And that's why radius of the Bohr orbit is directly proportional to square of principal quantum number. Directly proportional to square of principal quantum number. All these terms are constant. Epsilon 0, permittivity of free space, 8.85 into 10 raised to minus 12 in SI unit. This is a Planck constant. 6.63 into 10 raised to minus 34 joule second. Pi, mass of electron and charge on electron. This is actually the expression for radius. Many times the question asks, show that the radius of the Bohr orbit is directly proportional to square of principal quantum number. When we consider the radius first, second, third and fourth, it means that the value of R1, value of n is equal to 1, means that value is 1. But for n is equal to 2 square, air is a 4. N is equal to 3, air is a 9. N is equal to 4, air is a 16. Means radii of the Bohr orbit, they are in the ratio 1:4, 4:9, 9:16. Means this is actually the point related to the radius of the orbits. Again, when we substitute all these values in this equation, radius of the, and if suppose the value of n is equal to 1 for first orbit, n is equal to 1, then R1 is equal to, after substituting all these constant value, that value must be equal to 0.5374 extra minute. R1 is equal to this. It means that the value of this total term, that must be equal to 0. This. Then what is the value of this Rn? Rn must be equal to 0.5374 multiplied by n square. And what is this value? Rn must be equal to R1 multiplied by n square. You may write in this manner. Rn is equal to, this is actually the value, Rn is equal to R1 n square. This is actually the expression for the radius of the Bohr orbit. What are actually the different radius in which that electron is revolving? And this is very important equation. You remember this, the radius of the Bohr orbit, that equation Rn must be equal to epsilon 0 n square h square divided by pi m e square, and Rn is directly proportional to n square. Remember this point. After that, what about the orbital velocity of the electron? How will you find the orbital velocity? What is the velocity of the electron that is revolving around the nucleus? Again, according to the second postulates, mvr is equal to nh divided by twice pi. Then v is equal to nh upon twice pi, here is m into r. Again, v is equal to n into h twice pi, m as it is, multiplied by r. And if suppose the velocity of that electron in nth orbit, then that r must be equal to Rn. What is the value of Rn? That is 1 upon Rn, means pi m e square divided by epsilon 0 n square, here is h square. That must be equal to, here is n, 1 n is cancelled, here is h is constant, here is pi is constant. What is remaining? This again m is constant. Velocity must be equal to e square divided by 2 epsilon 0 n into h. This is an expression for the velocity. means by which velocity that electron revolves around the nucleus, and the expression for this velocity is very important. From this equation, what's your conclusion? Velocity is inversely proportional to principle of quantum number, because E, epsilon 0 and H all are constant. Only changing term is orbit, first orbit, second orbit, third orbit, fourth orbit, but velocity remains constant. Sorry, velocity changing, orbit changing means velocity changing. It means that for n is equal to 1, inversely proportional, the velocity of that electron is more as compared to the velocity in higher orbits. As compared to the velocity in higher orbit. It means that electron present in first orbit that possess a more velocity as compared to the electron in second orbit. Electron in second orbit possess more velocity as compared to the electron in third orbit. Means this is actually the expression for radius, and this is the expression for the orbital velocity, that is Vn is equal to E square divided by 2 epsilon 0 n into h, expression for velocity. Means electron revolving around the nucleus in a particular orbit. What about the radius of that orbit? Radius must be equal to this. And that radius is directly proportional to the square of principal quantum number. But what about the velocity of the electron revolving within that orbit? That velocity must be equal to this. The next point, what is the frequency of revolution of the electron? For finding the frequency of revolution, if suppose there is a nucleus, electron is revolving in this orbit. Here is a nucleus, radius suppose say r, an electron revolving in this orbit. We know that basic equation, velocity or speed is equal to distance upon time. Velocity v, when this electron completes one revolution, and time required for that one revolution we call it as a period, and within that one revolution distance covered must be equal to circumference, and circumference must be equal to twice pi r, and time must be equal to capital T. Here is one revolution is considered. Time taken for one revolution we call it as a period, and within one revolution distance covered must be equal to twice pi r. Then v into t is equal to twice pi r, then t is equal to twice pi r upon v. What is frequency? Reciprocal of period. Frequency is equal to 1 upon t, and that must be equal to v divided by twice pi r. Frequency of revolution. That then f is equal to, what is the value of v? Again consider the orbit, nth orbit, and within that nth orbit the velocity is Vn and radius is Rn. What is the value of Vn? Vn is equal to E square divided by 2 epsilon 0 n into h multiplied by 1 divided by 2 pi. What is the value of Rn? Rn is equal to, it is pi m E square divided by epsilon 0 n square h square. Okay. See here Vn. What is the value of Vn? E square 2 epsilon 0 n into h. Here is 2 pi multiplied by Rn, pi m E square divided by this. That must be equal to, here is pi, again here is a pi gets cancelled, 2 multiplied by 2 here is 4, E square into E square, m e raised to 4 divided by 2 into 2, 4, epsilon, this epsilon 0 square, n and n, here is n cube multiplied by h cube. This is an expression for the frequency of revolution, m e raised to 4, 4 epsilon 0 square and n cube h cube. From this equation, again, what is actually the conclusion? Mass of the electron, charge on electron, permittivity of free phase, Planck constant, all these terms are constant. Frequency of revolution is inversely proportional to cube of the principal quantum number. Again, from this equation we conclude, in closer orbit, the rate of revolution of the electron is more as compared to the higher orbits, and that's why here is the frequency of revolution that must be equal to, here is m e raised to 4 divided by 4 epsilon 0 square, here is n cube h cube. These are actually the expressions in Bohr orbit. Electron revolves only in those orbits for which it satisfies the quantum condition, and for that orbit it cannot radiate energy. According to second postulates, its meaning is that, and that atom is stable. It cannot radiate energy means loss of energy 0, and electrons are revolving only for that particular orbit. That is, atom becomes stable. The second point, what about the energy of the electron? The next point, you remember that energy of the electron in Bohr orbit. Energy of the electron in Bohr orbit. We all are familiar with, when particle possess motion, due to that motion it possesses kinetic energy. And if suppose that particle is under the influence of some field, gravitational field, electric field, or that is magnetic field, at that time that particle possesses a potential energy. Here is, you remember that at the center nucleus, electron is revolving, means electron, and here is a nucleus. Electron is revolving in circle. Due to the motion, electron possesses kinetic energy. Electron possesses kinetic energy. In addition to this, nucleus carry the positive charge, and within that nucleus, total positive charges and total mass of the atom is concentrated, and this positive charge produces a electric field in surrounding space, and within that electric field, electron is revolving, and due to this electric field, that electron possesses potential energy. It means that total energy of the electron, that must be equal to kinetic energy due to the motion and potential energy due to the field produced by the nucleus, and within that field electron is present. That's why the first point we found what is meant by the kinetic energy. We know the formula, kinetic energy is equal to 1/2 mv square. Kinetic energy is equal to this. When we find the kinetic energy 1/2 mv square, again we consider the nth orbit. Within that nth orbit, here is m, here is a mass, v square. How will you write the v square? Here is e raised to 4 divided by Air is 4 epsilon 0 square, air is n square and h square, velocity square. That must be equal to kinetic energy must be equal to 1 upon 8 m e raised to 4 epsilon 0 square n square h square. Call this equation suppose say first. But second point, what is meant by the potential energy? Potential energy is due to the influence of electric field produced by the nucleus. Potential energy is nothing but the work done. The amount of work done, it is always stored in the form of potential energy. And it is the work done to bringing a charge from infinity to that given point. It means that nucleus, suppose here is a distance r, air is a electron, and suppose that electron is at infinity. This is actually in the direction of the electric field of the nucleus, opposite to that. Move that electron from infinity to this distance r. Infinity to this particular point, air is the infinity point, and from that infinity, that electron is moved to this point. And what is actually the work done for that purpose? Basically, again, we are familiar with work done must be equal to force multiplied by displacement. And instead of considering this total distance, we consider a small part. Suppose this small region distance, we call it as a dr, and suppose point A to B, electron is moving from A to B in a direction opposite to that of the field of the nucleus. Direction of the field of the nucleus in this direction, and opposite to that, electron is moving by applying a force. At that time, that work done must be equal to F into dr. F into dr. But what is actually the total work done? This is actually the amount of work done for displacing an electron through a small distance dr. At that time, this is a work done. But what is actually the total work done to move the electron from infinity to this point? At that time, the total work done must be equal to integration F into dr. And that displacement is from infinity to r. Total work done must be equal to this infinity to r. And that work done means potential energy, and that potential energy must be equal to integration infinity to r F into dr. What is F? F is actually the electrostatic force of attraction between the nucleus and electron. And according to Coulomb's law, air is infinity to r 1 upon 4 pi epsilon 0 e square upon r square into dr. This is force, electrostatic force of attraction between the nucleus and electron. In this equation, 1 upon 4 pi epsilon 0 e square is constant. Integration from infinity to r, it is r raised to minus 2 into dr. We know the integration x raised to n, integration of x raised to n is equal to x raised to n plus 1 divided by n plus 1. In a similar manner, integration of this x raised to n plus 1 minus 2 plus 1 means r raised to minus 1, and n plus 1 minus 2 plus 1 means minus 1. Means how will you write? That must be equal to 1 upon 4 pi epsilon 0, air is e square, integration of this r raised to minus 1 divided by minus 1, and limits of the integration from infinity to r. That must be equal to this minus sign, minus 1 upon 4 pi epsilon 0, air is e square, in bracket it is 1 upon r, limits from infinity to r. In this equation, upper limit is r, that must be equal to minus e square divided by 4 pi epsilon 0. 4 pi epsilon 0 minus e square 4 pi epsilon 0. And what about the r? Means it is 1 upon r as it is. And 1 upon infinity, lower limit, that is 0. This is actually the potential energy. That must be equal to, potential energy is equal to minus e square divided by 4 pi epsilon 0 multiplied by 1 upon r. What is the value of r? Rn is equal to this. It means that pi m e square divided by epsilon 0 n square h square. Pi gets cancelled. That must be equal to minus m e raised to 4. Minus m e raised to 4 divided by 4 epsilon 0 square n square h square. Call this equation second. Equation first represent kinetic energy. Equation second represent potential energy. But what about the total energy? Total energy must be equal to kinetic energy plus potential energy. Kinetic energy plus potential. What is the value of kinetic energy? M e raised to 4 divided by 8 epsilon 0 square n square h square minus m e raised to 4 divided by 4 epsilon 0 square n square h square. In this equation, you remember that m e raised to 4, when we solve this equation, what about the total energy? M e raised to 4 epsilon 0 square n square h square is common. What is remaining? 1 upon 8 minus 1 upon 4. That must be equal to m e raised to 4 epsilon 0 square n square h square. What is LCM here? 8. It is 1 minus 2. What is this value? That value must be equal to minus 1. And that's why it is the equation minus 8 epsilon 0 square n square m e raised to 4 8 epsilon 0 square n square h square. This is actually the total energy. Again, very important point about the total energy point of view. First one, in brief, electron revolves in circular orbit. Due to motion, kinetic energy, that value must be equal to this. Due to the field of the nucleus, its potential energy is equal to this. And finally, the total energy is equal to this. After that, total energy of the electron minus m e raised to 4 divided by 8 epsilon 0 square n square h square. Again, in this equation, m e raised to 4 8 epsilon 0 square h square multiplied by 1 upon n square. All these terms are constant. All these terms are constant. And when we substitute total energy of the first orbit, suppose say E1, when we substitute all these values for first energy level, the value of n, if it is equal to 1, that must be equal to minus 13.6 electron volt for the first orbit. For second orbit, the energy must be equal to E1 divided by n square. For it means E1 divided by 4. for second orbit. E1 divided by 4 means minus 13.6 divided by 4. For the next orbit, it is E1 divided by 9, that must be equal to minus 13.6 divided by 9. In this case, the energy of that electron is minus 5.4, it is minus 1.4. As the number of orbit increases, energy approaches towards the zero. And when the value of the n means infinity, n is equal to infinity, at that time energy must be equal to 0. Remember, energy of the first orbit minus 13.6 electron volt, second orbit minus 13.6 divided by 4, third orbit minus 13.6 divided by 9, and so on. Its meaning is that as the orbit number increases, energy approaches towards the 0. And when the orbit number is infinity, at that time energy must be equal to 0. What is its meaning? What is the meaning of this negative sign? Electron revolving around the nucleus possesses negative energy. Its meaning is that it is not able to escape out of the atom. It is bound to the nucleus. Means electron is bound to the nucleus. Negative energy, its meaning is that for that electron, it is impossible to escape out of the atom. But as soon as the energy is equal to 0, at that time that electron that is free from that atom. And negative sign indicate that electron is bound to the nucleus. And when that energy 0, it is free. An amount of energy that is to be required to free the electron present in first orbit. It means that in first orbit the energy is minus 13.6 electron volt. And to make the electron free, its energy must be 0. It means that amount of energy supplied must be equal to plus 13.6 electron volt for that electron, then and that electron is escape out of the atom. And that energy, we call it as a ionization energy. In this lecture, today, we discuss about the postulates of the Bohr's theory. After studying the postulates, radius of the orbit, velocity of the orbit of the electron, frequency of revolution of the electron, and energy of the electron. In the next lecture, we will see the origin of spectral line. Okay, thank you.